Hey guys, and welcome back to Battlefront Updates. Today I wanted to talk about game modes in Battlefront 2, because there's a lot of requests in the community about what kind of season content we want in 2018, and game modes is definitely a big part of that. This game has a lot less game modes than the last game, but I personally think that's good because it means we won't split up the community, and most Galactic Assault maps do have unique objectives, so it's basically like we do have Walker Assault, Turning Point and Supremacy at the same time, although not exactly the same. But that being said, there is still room for a lot more game modes in this game. Maybe not as many as in the previous game, because that is bound to split up the community, but definitely a couple of more. So in this video I wanted to list 5 game modes and how I think they could fit into the game. I think these fairly well represent the requests of the community, but I just want to say that these are 5 game modes that I personally really want, so you are more than welcome to disagree with me on these. And I would love to hear in the comments below which 5 game modes you want, or which one game mode you want the most. So let's dive right into it, starting off with a fairly simple choice: Extraction. This is my favorite DLC game mode from the last game, and it seems like a big part of the community agrees with me because a lot of people liked Extraction. Game modes where the objective moves tend to be a lot more fun, and for those of you who don't know, in Extraction you were supposed to escort a shipment by activating it, at which point it starts to slowly move, and for the enemy team you simply need to deactivate it so it stops moving, and whenever you reach specific checkpoints the escorting team will get more time. So it's a fairly simple game mode, and in the last game it also contained heroes. During the first phase the escorting team got 1 hero, during the middle phase both sides got 1 hero, and in the third phase the defending side got a hero. I really like this idea because it made it very balanced, because obviously it makes it a lot easier for the escorting team during the first phase and a lot harder during the last phase, like it should be. The game shouldn't end during the first phase, at least not in the majority of the games. And I think in this game they could possibly even bump up the hero count a little bit, since the heroes are weaker. It all depends on the player count, of course, but let's say we have 10 players on each team. I definitely think we could fit more heroes than in the last game, potentially 3 or 4 in total per side, spread across the different phases. And in terms of maps, that's also an important question, because a lot of game modes will obviously be a lot easier to implement if you can use the existing maps. And I think Extraction could fit on quite a few maps. Maps like Kashyyyk it might not work very well on, but other maps such as the Death Star, Mos Eisley, or even Camino, I think it could work really well on. As long as there's a good path through at least half the map and some decent cover, I think it could work very well. The reason to why it wouldn't work very well on Kashyyyk is simply because there's not really a good path for a small game mode and shipment to go through, because it would have to go in the middle of the open area. The map could of course be adjusted with more cover and such, so I'm sure in the end they would be able to add Extraction to all maps, but there's a lot of maps in the game and I would be totally fine if it was only added to like half of them. But now over to my number 2 pick, which is another game mode that I think would be cool if it returned from the last game: Droid Run. Similarly to what I brought up regarding Extraction, I think the joy of this game mode was that the gonk droids constantly moved around, which really changed the way you play the map. So you couldn't just drop down a bunch of mines on the point, because well, the gonk droid moves. And the way Droid Run worked after they patched it was that you need to capture all 3 droids, and when you have them captured the percentage meter will slowly tick up. So you only get points if you have all 3 of them, which I thought was fine. The first version was a little bit annoying, because then you had to hold all 3 for a specific amount of time to win overall, whereas the new version basically meant that if you held the 3 droids for more than like 1 second, you still got some points for it. So it could be a very even match where one team only has 3 of the droids for 1 second, and then the rest of the game they're gonna be split up between the teams, which would mean that the first team would still win because it got that 1 or 2% of the capture. And I think Droid Run could be a really good idea for this. It could even be incorporated into Strike and have that as one of the Strike variations, for the simple reason that you don't want to split up the community too much. But if it is a very popular game mode, it always has the chance of people getting annoyed that they can only play it every 3 maps or so in Strike. So it's a tough question saying whether or not some of these game modes should be incorporated into the current lists, or if they should be in a separate list, because there's both good and bad things about it. And now over to my 3rd pick, and now we're getting into some game modes that were not in the last game. And first off, we got Hunt, a game mode that was very popular in the original Battlefront 2 game. And it doesn't necessarily have to be hunt for me. I think the main thing I want to talk about here is being able to play as an indigenous species, because I think that could be really cool. And they have shown that they are willing to create some characters that aren't simply human or humanoids, because we do have Chewie, who is a little bit bigger, but of course we've got Yoda, and he is the same size as an Ewok or Jawa, so I'm sure they could pull that off if they wanted to, although it might be quite a lot of work. And there's also a lot of abilities on the heroes that can be slightly adjusted to work on those type of creatures. So I think it would be cool if we got some type of hunt-ish game mode that included indigenous species such as Tusken Raiders, Jawas, Wampas, and things like that. And it doesn't have to be a carbon copy of the previous hunt mode, but just something where we get to play some cool species basically. And now to my fourth pick, which I think you were all waiting for when you watched this video, which is of course Conquest. And I want to talk quite a bit about Conquest, because Conquest was a very important game mode in the original Battlefront games. It was what I played 95% of the time when I played Battlefront 1 and 2. And one of the reasons to why I don't think they've implemented it in any of the last Battlefront games are two reasons. First of all, that they've gone for more linear gameplay, so it wouldn't have fit very well on some of the maps, and also because they've said that they don't just want to copy Battlefield. But I think it could actually work really well on some of the maps in this game, because at first I also thought the same way. Well, some maps are very linear. I mean, that's how Galactic Assault and Walker Assault is built, so maybe Conquest won't work there. But if you really think about it, if you compare, for instance, the Kashyyyk map of Battlefront 2, the original, and Battlefront 2 here, this Battlefront 2 map is actually bigger, both in terms of length and in width. I would say it's probably the same, or maybe even bigger, so it could definitely work for Conquest. Maybe not all maps would work, like the Death Star I could see not being the best option for Conquest, but some maps such as Naboo, Kashyyyk, Mos Eisley, I definitely think would work for Conquest. Sure, they won't be as big as some Battlefield 4 or Battlefield 1 maps, but we don't really need that for Conquest. I mean, Conquest in the original Battlefront games definitely had smaller maps than Battlefield, at least some of them, and it worked really well. So I think that proves that even though these maps are made for slightly more linear game modes such as Galactic Assault, I definitely think Conquest could work on some of them, and it doesn't have to be the massive 32 versus 32 large-scale maps like Battlefield has, but it's just the whole part of not having one or two objectives at the same time, but actually being able to choose freely 5 different objectives or 4, depending on how you want to design it, that you can choose to go to. And I think that would make it a lot more fun to play with friends as well, because that's something I miss from Battlefield, where I just picked a chopper with a couple of friends and said, hey, let's go for this point. We usually crashed, but it was still fun going for a specific objective. And sure, I do that now when I play with friends, but it's not really the same way, because you still run where the rest of your team is running most of the time. So if you can go off to the side and go on your own little side mission to capture a point, I think that's the kind of glory of Conquest. And the other good part is, of course, that Conquest would be a little bit more symmetrical, because all of the game modes we have now are asymmetrical, which means that both sides are different, defending and attacking, which is really good, don't get me wrong. That's one of the joys of Galactic Assault and Walker Assault, in my opinion, because it means that it won't just be the same thing over and over. But it would be nice to have both. If we can have Galactic Assault and Conquest on most of the maps, I think that would be the ideal solution for everyone. And just a quick note that I think heroes should work similarly on Conquest like they do on Galactic Assault, because it would be really cool if you pick a hero and go for kind of a solo capture on a point, but then you meet another hero there and you get an epic battle or something. So I don't see any reason to change how the heroes works there. Of course, you can tweak a little bit how much heroes you can have at a given time, but overall I think it could work similarly to Galactic Assault. And lastly, a game mode that I think some people have discussed for this game, but the reason to why I bring it up personally is because, except for Battlefront 2, I pretty much only play Battle Royale games. Fortnite and PUBG, mostly PUBG at the moment, but it's something that a lot of companies are looking into because of how popular it is. And it's definitely something that I think could to some degree work in Battlefront. And the reason to why I would love it is because I like the shooting mechanics of Battlefront more than I do in Fortnite and PUBG. Not because they're somehow more realistic, because they obviously aren't, it's Star Wars, but because I like that kind of playstyle more. I can do so much better with blasters than I can with more realistic guns, and it's two completely different playstyles, and that's why I would love to see how a Battle Royale could fit in the Star Wars universe. I think the tricky part here is making it Star Warsy, because they definitely cannot just copy Fortnite or PUBG. Building, no, definitely not. And just having like 100 people drop down on a massive map, I don't think that would work either. But the kind of important things when I think about Battle Royale is basically that if you die, you are out, and that you have limited resources. And I think that those are the two main things that would need to be implemented if they added it to Battlefront, because the rest of the things that makes PUBG or Fortnite aren't as important, especially if they want to make this into something unique and not just a copy with a Star Wars skin. And another question I have is, can we actually do every man for himself? Because I'm pretty sure Lucasfilm would not approve of like clones versus clones or stormtroopers versus stormtroopers. So that might be another issue, but obviously something like maybe Mandalorian warriors or bounty hunters could potentially work against each other. But there are some battle royales that have team-based gameplay as well, so there's a lot of options to explore there simply. But for me personally, the whole main thing is that every life counts and that every shot counts. It's not just something where you run in, you kill some people, you die, you respawn over and over and over, because that's how most shooters are. And what makes a battle royale really exciting is that you know that every shot really matters, every life really matters. And if you end up on the winning team, or if you play solo and end up as the sole winner, that's a really good feeling, a lot better than you would feel if you won a Galactic Assault round. So that's why I think it would be really cool if they explored it. I have no idea if that's something they even want to put in the seasons, or if you guys even want to see it. But it's something that at some point in Battlefront's lifespan, whether it's this game or a potential next one, I would love to see. But I think that brings my list of the 5 game modes I want the most to an end. I want to give an honorable mention to Cargo, because I know it's a very popular game mode in the community, and although I personally am not a huge fan of it, it's something that I could totally see them adding. And I think we saw that Jump Trooper Cargo game mode in the data mining, so it's very likely that that will be coming too. But it's not on my top 5 list personally, although I'm sure a lot of people in the community wants it. So if you enjoyed this video, feel free to drop a like and let me know what other top 5 videos you want to see for Star Wars Battlefront 2, as I think it's a lot of fun discussing these kind of topics. Thank you very much for watching, and as always, may the Force be with you.